before we start the video, I'd like to ask you guys to please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video, as it helps the channel grow. So, let's get into it. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it is fight week, and we got a good one coming up tomorrow on Saturday night when the champ Gervonta Tank Davis takes on the young up-and-comer Frank the Ghost Martin in a pay-per-view showdown in the lightweight division on PBC pay-per-view. I'm excited for this fight. I've been waiting for this fight for a while. It seems like a better fight in my mind than it does on paper. This is a pretty good matchup despite what people say. I'm excited. So in this video, I just figured I would give my quick little preview and prediction on how I think this fight will go. Give my usual fighter profiles for both guys. And yeah, pick a winner at the end of the video. So without further ado, let's get into it. What's up, guys? KT here, back at another video. Today, we're talking boxing. Boxing is heating up. We got some good fights coming up. Starting with this one, Gervonta Tank Davis is taking on Frank the Ghost Martin tomorrow night on pay-per-view in Las Vegas for the WBA World Lightweight title. This is a fight I've been looking forward to since this fight was announced earlier in the year. This is a better matchup than most people think. And I think it might be a pretty good fight depending on how these fighters' game plans shape out tomorrow night. So I'm not going to hold you guys for too much longer. Let's get straight into the fighter profiles. As usual, we will start with challenger Frank Martin. Frank the Ghost Martin, 29 years old, is a southpaw. That's a good thing. 5'8" with a 68-inch reach from Indianapolis, Indiana. In Frank Martin's young career, he's only had 19 fights. He's 18-0, 18 wins, no losses, no draws, and 12 big wins by way of KO. Frank Martin in his last fight went up against Artem Haratunian in a fight that was a little bit closer than what the scorecards may have indicated, but he was still able to get a unanimous decision. His fight before that was against Michel Rivera, in which he beat down Michel Rivera pretty badly in that fight, beat down the young guy pretty badly. Frank Martin is a product of that Derek James gym, and Derek James has a game plan coming out tomorrow that might give Gervonta a little bit of trouble. Frank Martin, good size, good length, good speed, good power. Definitely a guy you can look forward to in that 135-pound division, very deep division. Frank doesn't get a lot of credit outside of the few people who know him. He's able to generate power. He has good footwork. He's able to control distance with his jab. Very good boxing IQ. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes in the ring. I just think it's experience, it's lack of experience, and it's just being in his own head sometimes. That last fight against Artem Haratunian shouldn't have been as hard as he made it out to be. Even though Haratunian was a 12-0 fighter, he was a ranked fighter in that division, it still shouldn't have been that hard. Age is another issue. He's still young, don't get me wrong. He's the same age as Tank though, and Tank has already won multiple belts, so he can't really be considered a prospect. He's now reached contender status, so and the lack of top competition for his opponents it's concerning when you're going into the fight in the MGM Grand against arguably the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in boxing. Now that's arguably just due to star power, but Gervonta Tank Davis is a pound-for-pound fighter no matter what ranking. Some people have him #1 based on popularity, but going from a guy like Michel Rivera and Artem Haratunian to Gervonta Tank Davis on the highest stage for a belt, it shakes you a little bit, and I think you can see that in the fact of how Frank has been responding to some of the stuff that Tank has been doing in these press conferences and these meetups and these fighter meetings and all this stuff. He's gotten into Frank's head a little bit. Frank is less experienced, and you can see that at the face-off yesterday. Frank, he flinched a little bit when Gervonta was fake throwing a punch at him. Now, of course, it's natural instinct for any human to flinch when somebody's when it looks like somebody's going to throw a punch at you. So that's no matter here or there, and that's not really a big deal to me. I don't know why it is for some other people, but you know, it's not that serious. But at the same time, you can tell he's a little bit in his head. He can't really keep up with the trash talk that Tank is laying on him, and that's fine. You know, Frank doesn't really do that anyway. He's more quiet than usual. He did have a fight lined up with Shakur Stevenson, but he pulled out and took this fight with Tank. And I feel like if he's able to somehow pull this off, he would be one of the biggest stars in boxing if he's somehow able to pull this off. That being said, Frank has to do two things. He's gonna have to listen to his trainer for one thing. I feel like in that last fight against Artem Haratunian, he was kind of tuning out Derek James a bit. It was a rough time for that camp. The issues that started to arise, you know, I think, you know, guys were just a little bit out of sync. It just seemed like they weren't really in sync. Going into the lead up of that fight, going into that fight, during the fight, it just seemed like Derek James wasn't getting through to Frank in that fight, and it felt, and you could see that in the way Frank was fighting against Haratunian. You could see the mistakes he was making. Frank doesn't make that many mistakes like that. He's the GOAT. You know, he's very technically sound. He has good power. He's a sharpshooter as well, so he's able to counter punch as well. And I feel like he needs to punch when Tank is punching. Tank, you know, with all his electric power, and he does have really good head movement and all that stuff, he does still leave himself open for counter shots as well because of that electric power. You know the experience factor is going to play a part in this. Gervonta Tank Davis is most likely going to come out early and pressure Frank Martin heavily. He's going to want to see with what Frank Martin has, and you know, Frank is going to have to get Tank's respect, and the only way you can get that is if you're punching with a guy and counter punching Tank Davis. If you're able to land a good power punch on Tank Davis with the power that Frank has, he is bigger, he does have the longer reach. With the way he's able to control distance, his footwork, and the speed that he has, he should be able to counterpunch Tank Davis when he gets a little bit too aggressive. And I think Frank alluded to that, you know, in his fighter meeting or his press conference, whatever you want to call it. He alluded to that if Tank gets a little bit too aggressive, I'm going to punish him for that. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, you know, but if Tank gets a little bit too aggressive, I'm going to knock him out. And, you know, that's a good mindset to have, but going about that is Frank is able to fight off the back foot. And when I look at Tank Davis's previous opponents, you know, guys like Ryan Garcia, guys like Rolando Romero, guys like Isaac Cruz, guys like Mario Barrios, those aren't really guys, with the exception of Hector Luis Garcia, those aren't really guys that really know how to fight off their back foot. Those are guys that like to come forward, that like to be aggressive. When you have a guy like Frank Martin who's just really good at fighting off his back foot and has that speed, has that length, is able to control distance, I feel like counterpunching should be, you know, the number one thing on his list going into this fight. And I feel like there will be opportunities there. That straight shot will be there, you know. It's going to be there, and he's able to catch and shoot off those punches as well when he catches them on the gloves. I feel like that's going to be a big key for Frank Martin. So, you know, the main two things for Frank is calm down, listen to your trainer. All the press conferences and stuff will be in the past tomorrow. Listen to your trainer and look for those counterpunch opportunities. And I think he really, really has a good chance to make this fight competitive. If not, he really has a good chance to make himself a winner if he does that. Maybe, you know, if he does that, he has as good of a chance as anybody. Tank is still human. Anybody can be beat. We saw that with Devin Haney against Ryan Garcia, regardless of whether Garcia cheated or not. He had a good game plan. He effectively executed that game plan that Derek James drew up, and you saw what happened. He was able to get the win against Devin Haney. And I feel like if Frank does the same thing, listens to his trainer, and, you know, punch when Tank is punching, get those counter punches going, and I feel like he has a really good shot in this fight. I do. Moving on to the champ, Gervonta Tank Davis, the 29-year-old from Baltimore, Maryland, is a southpaw, also a southpaw. He's 5'5", and he has a 67.5-inch reach. Gervonta Tank Davis in his illustrious career has 29 wins, 0 losses, no draws, and 27 big wins by way of KO, 93% knockout percentage. He used to have 100, but, you know, tougher competition can sometimes can sometimes mess with that KO stat a little bit. Tank Davis in his last fight went up against Ryan Garcia, in which he was able to dispatch of Garcia with a body shot in the 7th round, if I'm not mistaken. His previous fight before that was a fight against Hector Luis Garcia, in which he was able to stop Garcia and make him quit on the stool. Tank Davis has knocked out nearly everybody who has fought him. There's not much. I say this all the time when Tank gets ready to fight and when I do videos on my channel about him. There's really not much more to be said about Tank Davis that hasn't already been said. He's a very popular fighter. He's holding the WBA World Lightweight title. He's talked about being undisputed in that division. He gets those highlight reel knockouts. He's a good trash talker. He knows how to sell a fight. He's humble. Guys like that. People like that. And he plays to the crowd. He's not really a villain like he tries to make himself out to be. Tank is a pretty good dude. He likes people cheering for him, and he has a lot of supporters in the world of boxing. He's still a very talented fighter at 29 years old, in the prime of his career. So much more to accomplish. The main thing for this fight against Frank is, yes, he's in Frank's head. He's way more experienced than Frank Martin. 19 career bouts for Frank Martin compared to the 30 bouts for Tank Davis. He's been under tutelage by Floyd Mayweather. What else is there to say about Floyd Mayweather? Even though they're having their issues, Floyd is a hater. For what he posted earlier today, he is a hater. So I will say that. They have had their spats before, but when you're learning from Floyd Mayweather and that wonderful camp over there, you got to have some real talent, and he's carried that talent throughout the pros. He's won belts. Still leaves a little bit to be desired. We still want to see fights him in there with guys like a Devin Haney, or a guy like a Shakur Stevenson, a guy like Vasyl Lomachenko. We still want to see him in there with those guys, but he doesn't leave a lot to be desired when he fights. Also a very good counterpuncher, very good speed, electric power, light tower power. Pretty good defense, pretty good footwork, pretty good punch selection. Doesn't waste a lot of punches because he doesn't need to. Is able to fight off the front foot or the back foot. Very good training staff, and Calvin Ford and his whole staff. It's a recipe for success, and I feel like Tank has worn that success pretty well. He's quirky at times. He gets into little spats on Twitter and stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, Tank understands that this is all business, and he's ready. He's always focused on fight night. He's ready to get things done. I feel like for him in this fight, it's just using that experience to his advantage. Frank has never fought a guy like him. Tank has some good names, not great names, but some good names on his resume, including the current belt holder Isaac Cruz, Mario Barrios, Hector Luis Garcia, and guys like that. We've all seen those guys go on to win titles. And of course, Ryan Garcia was able to beat Devin Haney. So, even though his resume still does leave a lot to be desired, these are still really good names, and these are still much better fighters than what Frank Martin has been facing in his career. I feel like the experience will carry over, and I also feel like Frank has a little bit of a disadvantage that Gervonta will try to exploit. And that's going to be the body punches. Tanks has noticed it. I know he's noticing on film. If we've noticed it, I know he's noticed it, and he said it before on a podcast. Frank seems weak to the body, and I feel like that's where he's going to target. When Frank gets a little bit too over aggressive, he leaves his hands up too high, he's going to shoot down low with a body shot, especially to that right side where that liver is. To that right side where where he's going to be most exposed. And Frank has taken body shots before. He's responded well to them before, but it's not a Tank body shot. We've seen what Tank body shots do to people. We just saw it last fight with Ryan Garcia, and how he was able to make Garcia quit on the canvas with a body shot, and that changed Ryan Garcia's complete game plan. Now we got Ryan Garcia leaning all the way to the right to protect that exposed side of his body, because he really doesn't want to get hit there anymore. And I just feel like he's the more experienced fighter. I feel like he's going to start laying traps around the middle rounds. He might struggle a bit with Frank just because he is a southpaw and he's a lot faster than what people might think. And a lot more powerful than people might think. But, you know, the veteran experience, the way Gervonta is able to, you know, lay traps for guys, the way he's able to get guys to walk into things, I feel like that's gonna play a role in this fight. The way Frank is not really experienced that before in his career. I feel like with Tank's power and his ability to set up traps and be a very good counterpuncher, I feel like he's going to be able to get out of there and is going to be able to find his punches to be able to put Frank Martin in these questionable situations. And it's all going to be up to Frank on how he responds. But usually when guys get hit by Tank Davis, they go down, they don't get up, and they don't respond well. So I feel like Tank's experience, his ability to set traps, and, you know, his light tower power is going to carry through in this fight. So ultimately, my prediction is going to be Tank Davis by a late round stoppage. I'm going to go with a 9th round stoppage. I feel like he's going to stop Frank with a body shot. I feel like Tank is going to download information for the first few rounds. Then you'll start seeing by the 5th or 6th round, he'll start pressing the action. He's going to start pulling Frank in these waters where he's never been before. And around that aim for 9th round, I feel like we're going to see that first shot land for Tank where he's going to hurt Frank, and I don't feel like Frank is going to be able to respond. I could be wrong. This fight does seem a little bit better in my head. I do feel like it could be a competitive fight if Frank listens to his corner, if he follows the game plan that Derek James has laid out. But overall, Tank Davis, he's just too experienced. He has a lot he wants to accomplish, and he's just way more talented than Frank is, especially in the power department. Ultimately, the equalizer is that power. I feel like he's going to be able to exploit Frank in the later rounds. I have Tank Davis by late round stoppage in the 9th round. But, you know, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Who do you guys have winning? Do you have Frank Martin or do you have Gervonta Tank Davis winning? Let me know how and why in the comments. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. We got good fights tomorrow. David Benavidez will also be on the card making his 175 debut. So I'm excited for that. So I'm gonna be tuned into this fight heavy, into this whole card heavy. So I'm excited. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video, as it helps the channel grow. Hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I drop one of these boxing videos. I'm trying to get back into a rhythm with these boxing videos. We got some good fights coming up soon. So be looking out for those. Follow me on social media. I'll make sure to repost some things that might or may not happen leading up to the face-off later tonight, the official weigh-in. Hopefully everything goes well, barring anybody missing weight or anything. But they both seem to weigh in pretty well. So be looking out for that. But overall, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'm out. Peace.